Okay, so assuming you've got this far, you flip the plate over and you see that your bass bar is installed. But this is very crude right now. It's not really tuned, you know, and not really tuned to the plate. It's just glued, you know. It's really thick. It's a little too high, you know. So, and on the inside, I'm using a tooth plane to. You see, it's very rough. The surface is very rough. It's very bumpy. It's not smooth, you know. Same thing on the other side. It's very. The only thing that's basically finished is the area where the bridge is, because I've already set the neck to a certain angle, you know. I've set the neck to the exact angle that I want, with the preferably finished fingerboard, you know. This is for, so, and this is a violone, which is a bass instrument, you know. So, but basically the theory is the same, you know, for a violin or a bass or whatever, you know. So most makers, they basically they finish the arching on the top first. You know, they think, okay, I'm going to copy this Stradivari arching, and they use templates to lay along the top, you know. So they lay their template on it, and then they match the wood to fit the template down to 1/10 of a millimeter, you know. And that's fine, you could do it that way, you know. And if you want, I have the Mockel Kunstes Geigenball, and you can see that they drill the depths, you know. So you're looking at the back of the plate, and for me, this is just crazy. And it's a great way to copy, if you want to copy the sound of something or try to, you know, get this exact arching, you know. I don't recommend it though, because the thing about it is, you know, you want your instruments to sound like your instruments. You know, you don't want them to sound like Stradivari or Del Gesù, because, you know, you're not him. You know, and this is my theory anyway. So, and you can see here, this is a plate that Daniel Hoffman gave to me in Santander, and you can see where the guy has drilled in, and this guy obviously doesn't really know. I don't know who did this, but it's insane. But anyway, that's he's taking kind of the same approach, you know, of drilling, and I'll show you why I don't do that. And so every piece of wood is different, you know. If you look in here, you have this like stripe of like dark winter grain, you know. That's could be good or bad, I don't know, you know, but you know, the wood that someone else is using is going to be different. Even the wood from the same tree and the same location of the tree will be different, although it will have the sort of similar tonal characteristics, you know. So basically, the way I work is that I don't do the final tuning until the body is completely closed. Like if you look at the back of this instrument, it's still like really rough. You know, the surface is rough. I mean, most of it is done. You know, the arching is done and everything, but I'm tuning it from this side, and sometimes from this side, while it's on the ribs and while the neck is attached. And if you hold your violin around here, and you let it hang from your fingers, then you can kind of tap. And you can hear all of the modes, what they say, modes, or, you know, you can hear the plate, attached with the neck attached, with the ribs attached, and then you can work that way to where you want to get, you know, what you're after. The whole point of like trying to explain all of this to you is you want, it's very much like, like the acoustic room, where you have an impulse, and then you have sound coming from the strings onto the bridge. The bridge transmits it to the plate, which vibrates. The bridge is vibrating as well. And when it goes inside this chamber, you know, it is reflected by the back, you know. But I'll get to more of that later about damping and what is good damping and what is bad damping. It's the same thing with acoustic treatments in a room, you know. I mean, similar, you know. So, yeah, so I'm working on both sides, right? Instead of finishing the surface based upon the... and the way I do that is with the scraper. And this is the shape that I use. So the flat part is going to do this direction. A sharp scraper will get shavings, not dust. But this could be sharpened, but we're gonna keep rolling. So now I'm pretty much close to where I want to be. You know, the neck is already set. I don't want to make any changes here because that would affect my, you know, but I'm tuning all the way around here, right? And I'm doing it on both sides. So I'm looking at my arching, and I'm looking at the profile, this way, and I'm looking at that. So I see now that this is a little high, which is okay, but I'm going to start scraping and taking that down a little bit because maybe I do want it high there. I don't know, you know. And I'm doing the same thing here on the other side, right? I'm scraping. Because I'm getting ready to glue this, you know. I'm scraping, and I'm feeling with my... Can you
show me a scraper? Is it the same scraper I
have? You have to make your scrapers. So you make them from steel, you know? I'll show you all that later. So I'm just trying to give you the my theory, you know? You're basically scraping from both sides. You're feeling where it's thick, and you want to use your calipers. I use the calipers just to check. Eventually, you're going to get so good that you'll be able to feel with your fingers. And sometimes I can do it to 1/10 of a millimeter. I mean, I can tell when something's 5, 6, or 7, but sometimes, I mean, you get really good at it, you know, after a while. And with a cello or a bass, you can't really get in there, so you're using 2 hands or you're using the calipers. But so what you're really after, okay? There are a lot of makers. They're using science. They're using. I'll put some. I'll send you some links or put them in this video. You should read everything by Roger Hargrave, everything by Carleen Hutchins does some great work on plate tuning, and there's all kinds of things you can do. But really, in my opinion, the best way to do this is with your ears, with your fingers, and with intuition, you know, because you're trying to create a specific sound for the customer's needs, you know. He wants something specific. So everything that you do is going to be geared towards this, you know, achieving this sound, you know. So there's a reason why this cello is highly arched, you know. There's a reason why that I'm doing everything that I'm doing. Someone may watch this video and say, wow, the top block is like really thick. That's crazy. I would never do that. But there's a reason why. It's because the willow is more fragile. So, and over time, the neck tends to pull this way, and what can happen is the button can break off. So I've got really...
You're not in the video. You're not in... just hold it more to the front. Okay.
Yeah, you notice like this is like 7 right here. I mean, that's nuts. So, and also willow has more damping qualities. Like everything that I do, down to wood choice, down to the shape of the bridge, everything is going after this kind of dream, you know, this sort of tone poem or whatnot. So after you've read everything from every book and Kunst des Geigenbau and all of this, what it's going to come down to is you tapping your plate, and you with a violin, you're holding it. With a cello, it's difficult, but you're trying to hold it.
Sorry, can you turn the camera more towards you?
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So you want to hold your plate here, yeah? If it's a violin. On a cello, it's a little more difficult. And then you want to tap everywhere. Right? And what you're after is this kind of marimba of different tones. You're getting a deeper tone here because it's thicker, and you're getting a sort of coloration of difference, like dong 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 dong. This isn't really there yet. It's very it's alive, but it's not like really speaking yet. And one reason for that is the bass bar is too thick. So so what I'll do is I'm going to be scraping and I'm going to be thinning, and I'm feeling with my fingers, and this could take days. You know, it's not going to happen in this video, but so what else? The most important thing, so the final tuning I do on the closed corpus, when the instrument is closed even, you know. So there was a musician in London who the sound post collapsed, and she took it into the shop, and you know, I forgot to blow out all of the dust, because you know, you imagine you're working on the closed instrument, and there's like all this stuff fell through the sound hole. So when she turned it upside down, it was like a Schneefall, you know, like snow falling, you know. So that's one thing to remember. Another really, really, really important thing is this kind of groove. I guess, I don't know how you would say in English, you know, and I'll send you a link to that. Roger Hargraves explains this really well in an article on making a bass. And the reason that you have this is because your ribs on an instrument, right? The ribs are besides the sound post, you know, the ribs are the sort of connecting factor that connect these two plates, right? The sound comes in and it's reflected by the back, right? But the ribs, a lot of people don't realize, especially musicians, that the ribs are where it's attached, you know. So anything that's attached to a plate, you know, if you hook a clothespin or something onto your instrument while you're playing, it will sound different. It'll sound radically different. So it's fascinating. But this kind of, you see this what is it? Channel? How do you say groove? I can't even say. I don't know.
Yeah.
You see it on Cremonese instruments, and most of them have it. You know, it's not necessarily important that you copy the Cremonese groove, you know, this groove. You don't need to worry about that. You just don't want it thick here. And the reason that you can screw this up is because this part has to be flat, see? This part has to be flat. So you're putting in your purfling at around 4 millimeter. So you really don't want to leave this part at 4 millimeter, because that's where it connects to the ribs, you see? So that's why they, you know, I'll show you what tools to use, and that's another reason why my scraper looks like this, is because I can use this part to kind of come in, you know, and make this kind of groove. How do you say that in English?
It's groove, I think.
Anyway, it doesn't,
whatever,
it doesn't matter, the name. So yeah, that's basically the concept, is that, you know, and this is really, so then there's a question of thick or thin, right? So you can make a really killer sounding violin by going super thin, you know, and it will be, what you're after is this sort of like, it just responds to your fingers, it responds to everything. It's, you know, like I say, you can do science. You can put tea leaves on here and vibrate the plate. You can try to get all of the modes in a certain, this mode of the plate responding to this tone, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, some people would say that's the only way to do it. But what you're robbing yourself of...
You can say convex shape, like for the,
don't worry about it.
It's a convex.
What you're robbing yourself of is the learning experience of gaining this intuition. That this arching works well because you've done it before. You know that you're not drilling your depths and doing the same thing over and over and over again. You do over, I've been doing this for almost 30 years. I'd say after around 8 to 10 years, you get to the point where you're just like, you're even planing and you're it's not that you're working quickly, it's that you're working efficiently. You know exactly what needs to be done. You're scraping and tuning and tapping, and then you get to this point where it's and it's we're spot like this is really close. It's not there yet because the bass bar is too thick. But when it gets to that point, what I do is I just stop. Stop, and then I get my calipers out and I check it with the, I should have them here, but like I say, I just use my fingers. I use the calipers to check my intuition, not, and I think another mistake, in my opinion, this is a mistake, is that luthiers will go to a plate and they'll say, where is it? Muckle has it like, they'll look at this map of the thickness, and they'll try to mimic like, okay, I want 2.5 here, I want and they'll meticulously try to get this like clinical, and they actually, in my opinion, and there's a lot of talk about this, but in my opinion, they sound better when they're not clinically done, like when the surface is kind of lumpy, because the plate just, but if it's a, symmetrical, perfect, clean object, I mean, my intuition says that it's not gonna it's gonna lack a kind of sila, some kind of soul, so so what else? Yeah, I mean, you're just. What else do I need to tell you?
So what do you want the sound post to look like in the end?
You mean the bass bar?
The bass bar. Sorry.
Yeah, the bass bar. Well, people say bass bar is also intuition, and this is absolutely true. You can do. Hargrave also has a great thing on the technique of gluing a bass bar. That's very important. This is not intuition. And there's a question of springing it, which means you leave, I don't do this, where you leave a kind of gap at the end, and that puts tension on the plate. But I don't really want to do that because, I don't know, I don't like to. It just makes me nervous, You can also, it's already going to have tension because these blocks are generally, if you look at the technical specs I sent you, these blocks are generally higher than this one, as a rule. If you're making a Cremonese copy, this block is always going to be. And if you look at the shapes of the Baroque, the monocle PDF, and you can look at all the block sizes, you'll notice that the top block tends to be smaller. And what this does, shorter, is it puts a little bit of tension on the top plate, which is good, but too much is, when you got tension here and you're springing your bass bar, come on, Yeah. I mean, there's already enough pressure and tension, It depends on the instruments, and But as far as the profile, this is a good point. So the profile, this is going to be up to you. You're going to look at historic bass bars. Look at what other makers do.
I saw some where the bottom half is like longer than the top half. You know,
I don't know.
like the like where the peak is more to the upside of the instrument, not to the head.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you generally want your highest point where the bridge is, but some makers do different things. This is still really high because I kind of tune everything together. You know, I mean, I can't explain how I do it. I look at the arching and then at the very end, the most important thing is to do this Gruber. You know, and some people may say, "Oh, well, you don't know how thick it is." I say, "I know exactly how thick it is, like right here." You know. But yeah, that's something, you know, it really matters. It's not really so much I mean, you don't want to do anything too crazy, but I've seen, you know, factory, you know, fiddles from Schoenbach, and they have an integral bar, which means the bar is actually cut into the plate itself. It's not a separate piece of wood, you know. And they can actually sound really good, like it's nuts, you know. And you think, you know, so there's so much going on here that people say, oh, the bass bar is not good and this is not good. I mean, you have so much going on. What's most important, actually, and this is something you should write down, is that your foot, the bass bar is basically stopping the plate from being destroyed by the bridge, because you have so much pressure, especially on a violone or on a cello even, well, any instrument. You have so much downward pressure that if you didn't have the bass bar, the plate would just like, you know. So the most important thing is your foot over, is where the bass bar is in relation to the foot of your bridge. You see, of this foot, you know. And the same thing here, the sound post, you know. So, hold on, this is too loose. And I'll have to get, and that's another thing. The setup is a whole different thing. You know, I'm just trying to explain to you, you know, when you're tuning your violin, when you're tuning your plates, you know, how to get this. You want it ringing in multiple tones, you know. You want it like a marimba, like ding, 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 and then you just stop, you know. And, you know, there's methods and there's not methods, you know. But, yeah, the most important thing with the bass bar is that it be in the right position. So you need to mark that out. You need to have everything marked out, you know. You know, you could make instruments on the fly, and a lot of times I never make anything very...
Explain the positioning.
Huh? The positioning?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so... this is going across... what you don't want to do is a straight bar that's going like right across the grain, because what that does is you run the risk of cracks. And also, the slant of it allows you room. You know, if I had a straight bar going this way, you know, everything would be kind of crunched in. My feet would have to be narrow. So the slant allows you sort of room to have more foot spread, you know, the spread of your feet and whatnot. Now, sometimes I will do, I mean, you can look it up in the specs I sent. I think Strobel has a certain, you know, this, if you want to do a Cremonese violin, which is what you're doing, or you really want to follow all of the suggestions. You know, 19.5 Mensur, because the violin is you know, there's no mysteries involved. But sometimes I will do my, especially with bass instruments and viola, I will do my bar with less than you want to cross the grain, but less than the recommended slant. If it's a wide instrument, then you have room for that, and the reason for that is that when you're doing your setup and you're playing without varnish, you know, is that you can then make some changes to your mensur. So you, in theory, you can't do too much, but in theory, you can shift the mensur back by couple millimeters, this way a couple millimeters, or this way a couple millimeters. And because my bass bar is not so crazily slanted like a Cremonese violin, I'm still getting that overhang on this foot, you know. So, because there'll be times when, especially with viola or cello, where you may find that a mensura that's not than you originally planned, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, that's the sweet spot, you know, and it's just whoosh, and it rushes, and it could be literally just a half a millimeter shifting, you know, and all of a sudden it opens up, you know. And this could also be the sound, you know, the sound post position has to change. You need to be careful because you can't really change this because this is going to change your intonation, and it's going to, when you move the bridge back or forward, it's going to change the height of your strings, you know, over the fingerboard. So you can't do too much of that, you know. It's just a kind of, you know, I mean, your question is, where's the bass bar, you know, but for a violin, there are specific dimensions that in the specs I think that you really should follow, you know. But what else? I think we'll do a different video about reflection. I mentioned the impulse response, the reflection inside, and then interior varnish. That's another thing. Okay, so that applies to this actually. Once I have this scraped, once I have this perfectly smooth, I know that I'm going to glue it. I may come on the other side and do more of the groove, you know, this groove, and I'm going to do some very fine tuning on the closed instrument because I want to hear it together. Like, why would you tune a plate? You know, I mean, it's you know, but on the inside. And this is especially important for the back, is it, what I do is a really sharp scraper is going to give you smooth as a baby's butt. You know, it's going to be nice and smooth with a scraper, right? And that's fine. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, you know. But then what I do, and especially with an instrument like willow is very hairy. It's a softer hardwood. It's actually quite soft, which is why you would need to go thicker everywhere. If you go thin, it will sound like a dog's butt scraping on concrete, you know. So once I've got my back, this is what I'm doing today, is finalizing. Once I've got my back perfectly as smooth as I can, and I'll do on the inside, and I'll go with, I'll burnish it, you know. You want to make it not just smooth, you want to make it reflective, you know. So, but this is a whole nother video involving varnish, burnishing, but the concept is that the back is a reflector, right? You know, so it's reflecting the sound through the sound holes. So if you're using willow or poplar or cherry, you know, that low altitude woods, then you want to burnish it. You want it to be reflective, and I do that.
So you want the opposite. So you want the opposite that you want in a studio. You don't want a dead room. You want a live room.
Well, that's a good question because it's a balance. You know, you want a live room with. Yeah, I mean, you want some damping, you know? I mean, that's why I use willow, because willow gives us sort of really creamy trebles, you know? You can go too far. Like, you could take a maple violin and burnish it and put a bunch of varnish inside. You put tinfoil inside it. Wow, this is really going to resonate. But it's not going to, you know, it's not going to have character. It's just going to be, you know, like loud and... I did that on a viola once, and I had to remove the top and remove it because I'm going to make this like a mirror, like a bathroom inside, you know, and it didn't sound good. So it's a kind of balance. But if you're ordering from Parlor and he's saying, because I remember I said, you know,
the more treble there will be, you know.
Yeah, but if you're ordering from Parlor and you say, you know, Weide and Pappel bevorzugt, then you would need to do this, you know. With maple, it's going to be reflective. It's going to be hard. You know, it's just a question of how much you want to do it. But like I say, that's a different video. So, and another tool I use for the burnishing is Horsetail. Auf Deutsch, maybe it's Equisetum, or I can't remember. Horsetail is a plant.
Horsetail?
Horsetail, yeah. It's Equisetum this is a powder. If you look on my blog, it explains a little bit. You can also use it. The problem with this powder is that it leaves an ugly green color. But I swear to you, that after applying the burnishing, and I'll show you the varnishing, varnish, remove varnish, burnish, horsetail. Those are my stages. And when you put the horsetail on it, it just wakes up, and I have no idea why. So, but you can make tea out of this if you're having cramps, actually. But let's stop for now because the sun is shining in my face, and I need to hit the nicotine inhaler. So anyway, I hope that helps.
It's a 30-minute video anyway.
Yeah, 30 minutes. Yeah, it's endless. Like, this stuff is endless, you know. You could spend the rest of your life doing it and never, well, you could get some good sounding fiddles, but you will never be done. You know, never. It's like perfumery. You can, or, the Talmud. It's endless. Okay.
All right.